You decided early on to focus the script on 3 product launches.
Yes.
Why?
Well, at first, all I knew was what I didn't want to do. And what I didn't want to do was a conventional biography, what we call a biopic, a biographical picture, which is a cradle-to-grave structure. It's a structure that audiences are very familiar with. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, then he went to the doctor, and then he died. So I knew what I didn't want to do. So while trying to think of what I did want to do, I just started the research process. I started talking to all the real-life people who are represented in the film and a few dozen others. I began to identify points of friction between Steve and Steve Wozniak, between Steve and his daughter Lisa, between Steve and John Scully, and so on. And I like claustrophobic spaces. I like compressed periods of time where there's a clock ticking. And I thought, maybe I can dramatize all these conflicts in 3 real-time scenes. Real time is when 30 minutes for you in the audience is the same as 30 minutes for a character on screen. And I can have them all take place backstage in the minutes leading up to one of his famous product launches. It was a radical departure from a normal structure. I went to the studio and got their permission to do it. That's something I wouldn't ordinarily do. What I knew for sure is that this was going to be a movie built entirely out of words, so you were going to need a visual master like Danny Boyle to give it any kind of visual interest, and of course you were going to need a world-class cast of actors.
And is there any difference if you write about a living person like Mark Zuckerberg or someone who's passed like Steve Jobs?
I treated Steve Jobs like he was still alive. So no, in both cases, you cannot defame them. You can't. Obviously, I'm inventing dialogue. I wasn't there when they were really having these conversations, so I'm doing a certain amount of making it up. You know, I can't imply that someone was a fall-down drunk when they weren't, or someone was mean to kittens when they weren't. And I can't really invent plot that much. I can only take actual events and line them up in an interesting way for you.
And how did you find the balance between the genius and the asshole?
For me, the genius was going to be easy. The asshole was going to be easy. The warmth was going to be hard. And for that, I found it mostly in Steve learning to become a father.
Before this film, who was Steve Jobs to you?
Steve Jobs wasn't very important to me before this film. Even though I owned all the products, he's not. I can tell you that at least in the U.S., and the sense I get is that it's everywhere. There are people who feel about Steve Jobs the way other people feel about the Beatles, and he never was that for me. He was always a perfectly mortal figure. So it's one of the reasons I was nervous taking on this assignment. But then it was his humanity, his humanness that ultimately got me very excited about it.
What did you discover in your research that surprised you? Was something?
Well, almost everything, because I knew hardly anything. I'll tell you that I discovered in my research that he was a fan of mine. Which I didn't know. And of course, once I found that out, I thought he was a genius.